Outer space. Cold. Silent. Lifeless. Right? Not quite. Because while astronauts float above Earth, something else is floating too. And growing. Bacteria that thrive in microgravity. Fungi that get stronger in space. Even lab-grown meat is being tested miles above the planet. Today on Cosmic Crunch, we're diving into the weird world of space-grown life, and some of it is downright creepy. Let's crunch the cosmos. You might think the International Space Station is a sterile lab in the sky, but it turns out it's more like a petri dish in orbit. Microgravity changes how life behaves. Without gravity, cells grow differently. Bacteria become more resistant. Fungi become more aggressive. And yes, astronauts are even experimenting with growing food and synthetic tissues. It's not just a science experiment, it's survival. Because if we ever want to colonize the Moon or Mars, we need to know what can grow in space and what shouldn't. Let's start with something microscopic and terrifying. Astronauts discovered that some bacteria actually become stronger in space. For example, Salmonella, the same germ that causes food poisoning, was found to mutate in microgravity. Not only did it grow faster, it became more virulent, meaning it was better at infecting hosts. Even E. coli, another dangerous microbe, has been shown to resist antibiotics more effectively on the ISS than on Earth. Why? One theory is that without gravity, fluid doesn't settle around the cells the same way. This may trigger bacteria to adapt in survival mode, becoming harder to kill. It's like space gives germs superpowers. Comforting, right? But it's not just bacteria. In 2020, NASA discovered a fungus on the ISS that seemed oddly familiar. It was a strain of Aspergillus niger, a black mold commonly found in damp basements. Here's the creepy part. In space, it was growing faster, becoming more stress-resistant, and producing more spores. Spores that could easily float through the air on the ISS and potentially affect crew health. Fungi like this are resilient. They can survive radiation, vacuum, and extreme temperatures, making them a serious threat to long-term space missions. In fact, some fungi even eat radiation. Yep, researchers have found strains like Cladosporium sphaerospermum that grow on the walls of Chernobyl reactors and are now being tested to shield astronauts from cosmic radiation. So in space, fungus might be both the villain and the shield. Now let's move to something more delicious. In 2019, the Israeli startup Aleph Farms became the first to successfully grow lab-grown beef in space. Using cow cells, they grew tiny pieces of meat without the animal, all inside a bioreactor aboard the ISS. Why? Because on future missions to Mars or the Moon, astronauts won't have access to fresh meat. Imagine biting into a burger that was literally born in orbit. Cue Interstellar in and out. And it's not all scary. There are plants in space too. NASA's been growing lettuce, radishes, and even zinnias, those bright little flowers, in the veggie lab on the ISS. In 2015, astronaut Scott Kelly ate the first space-grown lettuce, saying it tasted surprisingly normal. These experiments help us understand how light, water, and nutrients work in microgravity. It's harder than you think. Without gravity, water clings to roots strangely, and plants grow in weird directions. But growing food in space is essential if we want to survive off Earth. Forget fast food, we're talking orbit-grown organics. From mutant microbes to synthetic meat to flower farms in orbit, space is not as lifeless as it seems. It's a living lab, where strange new life forms are being studied, cultivated, and sometimes accidentally evolved. So the next time you imagine astronauts floating in the peaceful void, remember, they're not alone. There's something growing on the ISS, and it might just shape the future of life beyond Earth. If this episode gave you space chills, give it a like, subscribe to Cosmic Crunch, and let us know in the comments which space-grown life form freaks you out the most, the bacteria, the fungi, or the space steak. Stay curious, and we'll see you in the next weird corner of the cosmos.